If you've been scrolling through endless specs, watching video after video, and still feel like you're picking a workstation blindfolded, this review is here to pull the curtain back. I've spent the last week swapping a bulky desktop for a ThinkStation P3 Tiny on a real client project, and I'm going to tell you exactly how it behaved when the coffee ran out, the deadline loomed, and the CAD files grew into a nightmare. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about the core dilemma most of us face. You need raw horsepower for heavy-duty apps. Think 3D rendering, simulation, video editing, but you also want a machine that fits under a standing desk or can be tucked away in a tight studio rack. The ThinkStation P3 Tiny promises both, packing a 12-core i9-14900 vPro into a chassis smaller than a showbox. The headline numbers look seductive, but what matters day-to-day is whether that power translates into smoother workflows without turning your office into a heat-scented sauna. I set the unit up on a 27-inch monitor, connected the included DKZ USB port expander, and ran my usual suite, Adobe Premiere Pro, SolidWorks, and a couple of Python-based data pipelines. The first thing I noticed was the boot time. Windows 11 Pro spun up in just under a minute, thanks to the 2TB PCIe SSD. That alone shaved off the typical 5-minute wait I'm used to on older workstations, and it meant I could jump straight into a 4-hour render after a short coffee break. For anyone who lives by the no idle time rule, that speed feels like a real productivity win. Multitasking is another arena where the Tiny shines. With 32 GB of DDR5 RAM, I could have Premiere, a Photoshop instance, and a live data dashboard all open without the system begging for more memory. The i9's hyper-threaded cores kept the CPU usage spread evenly, so I never saw that dreaded single-core bottleneck that makes timeline scrubbing feel like dragging a rock. In practical terms, I was able to trim a 10-minute video clip while a background simulation rendered, and both tasks progressed without noticeable lag. Now, let's get honest about the trade-offs. The most obvious limitation is the port selection. Out of the box you get one DisplayPort and 3 micro DisplayPort outputs, which is fine if you plan to use adapters for HDMI or DVI, but you lose the simplicity of a full-size HDMI port. The DKZ USB expander mitigates the shortage of USB-A and USB-C slots, yet it adds another dongle to your desk and draws power from the workstation itself. If you're a power user who runs multiple external drives or a high-speed Ethernet or USB capture card, you'll need to plan your cabling carefully. Heat management is another hidden factor. The P3 Tiny's compact chassis means there isn't a lot of room for airflow, and while the fans stay whisper quiet during light tasks, they ramp up noticeably when the CPU hits 90% under a full render. The temperature spikes to the low 80 SC, which is within safe limits but could be uncomfortable if the machine sits directly on a desk without ventilation. In my test, placing a small desk fan a few inches away kept the fan curve moderate, but that's an extra piece of equipment you might not have considered. Who should walk away with this machine? If you're a freelance designer, engineer, or video creator who needs serious compute muscle but can't afford a full-size tower, the ThinkStation P3 Tiny hits a sweet spot. Its small footprint makes it perfect for home offices, shared workspaces, or any environment where desk real estate is at a premium. The inclusion of vPro also opens up remote management options, which is a bonus for IT teams that need to push updates or troubleshoot without physically accessing the box. On the other hand, if your workflow relies heavily on multiple high-resolution monitors, you'll have to juggle adapters and perhaps a docking station to get enough video outputs. Similarly, if you expect to run GPU-intensive tasks like real-time ray tracing or deep learning training that demand a dedicated graphics card, the P3 Tiny's integrated graphics will become a bottleneck. In that scenario, you're better off looking at a larger workstation that can house a discrete GPU and more robust cooling. Let's break down the practical strengths one more time. The instant-in SSD and ample DDR5 memory give you a responsive system that feels alive even after hours of heavy use. The build quality is solid, no wobble, no loose screws, and the chassis, while tiny, feels like it could survive the occasional bump in a crowded studio. The inclusion of Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.3 means you can connect to modern routers and peripherals without hunting for legacy adapters, and the RJ45 Ethernet port guarantees a stable wired connection for large file transfers. Weaknesses, however, are just as concrete. Port density is limited, forcing you to rely on the external expander, which can be a hassle if you're constantly plugging and unplugging gear. Thermal headroom is respectable but not limitless. Sustained maximum load will make the fans audible and the case warm to the touch. Finally, the price point sits higher than a